Welcome to the second episode of Uphill Both Ways. Today we got a very special surprise. We're going to be talking about Super Mario World, which was definitely one of the best Mario games ever made. Minus says it's his favorite Mario game, correct? What about platforming? Is it your favorite platforming game?
Yeah, I'm not a huge platformer.
Oh.
So yeah, this is easily my favorite platformer. There's definitely some good ones out there, but this is the best.
Just in case you're joining us for the first time, Uphill Both Ways, basically what we do here is we talk about an old school game, something that only us old geezers would know about. We talk about when it happened, how we felt. We talk about different scenes that happened in that game, and then we react to it, and we just kind of talk about where we were at that time, and what was going on, what we thought, etc. And the cool part about this series is that you get this video, and then when you get done with it, whether you like it or not, then you get to go check out Minus's video, and he has a totally different one, especially this week, because I messed up on my recording on my end and recorded the top of his hat only, so we're actually doing a separate recording. Yeah, that's what it looked like, the whole recording.
Hurley better give us some money for that one.
Let's talk about the intro, man. When you just turn the game on. The Super Mario World took it to the next level because it was 16-bit, had the beautiful freaking graphics, the colors were popping out.
Double the bits! Double the bits.
Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Double the bit. Back then we only cared about bits, didn't we?
Sega Genesis is 16 bits, 3DO is 32 bits, the Atari Jaguar is 64 bits.
Yeah, starting Super Mario World, right off the bat, you start in Yoshi's house.
Yeah.
But you haven't experienced, you don't know really at this point what Yoshi's all about.
Right.
So, then you have that option, right? So for the first time in the game, you're sitting at Yoshi's house and you can go left, you can go right. Which right away you're like, what are all these options?
Immediately, too. It's not like it waited a little while. First in the game, what are you going to do? You're going to go left or right?
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt. So if you go right, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. And also, you get Yoshi fairly quickly. You can pick him up at the very beginning of the game.
I mean, wow. It's in the old games it was, get a feather. You're super powerful with the feather. Fireball in the first game is super powerful. It's nice to have the cape. It's nice to have firepower, but there was nothing like having Yoshi in a majority of the levels.
And you learned how to use Yoshi. We talked about earlier about sacrificing him to get that extra little jump.
Or dying because you just run off a cliff trying to be like, no, Yoshi!
Were you confused when you first started playing the game because there were two types of jumps? That threw me off really bad.
Oh, the spin jump and the regular jump.
That threw me off.
Well, yeah, and then you figure out once you're big, the spin jump will break downward.
Yeah.
Which was, that's pretty interesting. I don't even think about that much. I rarely use that. Yeah, the spin jump was interesting because it was needed for secrets, like finding different secrets within the game. But yeah, outside of the secrets, I rarely use that.
The cape was the best superpower though, right? Does everybody agree the cape was awesome?
I found that I never used firepower much in Super Mario World. I mean, maybe in a horrible, godforsaken water level. Fireballs were still good. But yeah, the cape was awesome. In the thing about the cape that was, you didn't get, everybody knew you could fly, right? So that was the cool part. But just the spinning with the cape was super powerful for killing different enemies or just hitting something real quick or hitting a box that you couldn't get any other way.
The keeping yourself afloat trick, you got really good at it, and you could fly you had to catch the wind. You had to
yeah, that's how you showed off to your friends. The best friend of the group was the one who could do the flying the best. And then if you were really good, like if you fell a little bit, you could actually work your way back up,
Right.
which was
right.
tricky.
That was
You know,
really
like because usually it was just trying to stay where you were, but if you could get yourself to actually start going up a little bit, that was
Yeah,
you
if
were
you caught the wind really good, you could actually get quite a bit above where you were to begin with.
Yeah.
You could, but if you were bad at it, you would just keep going lower.
yeah, you just keep sinking down. And there were levels that you could just, if you were good enough, you'd fly off the screen, and if you just knew the timing, you could literally stay above the screen all the way to the end, and then you just hear the when you pass the ribbon gate thing, you would just hear the sound and you just fall down, and then you beat the level.
Yeah. What was your favorite boss moment in Super Mario World?
I really liked the Rhino.
That's mine too. I love the Rhino.
Yeah, the Rhino, if I'm not mistaken, was the end boss of all the fortresses, because you had the castles and everyone was like the Bowser kids.
Right.
But every time you got to like a fortress, which was usually path towards a secret, like you didn't usually just come across a fortress and you'd have to. I think every fortress boss, if I'm not mistaken, was the Rhinos.
Yeah, I remember that behind the Rhino, the mechanisms that were moving him. I remember I thought they were 3D.
Well, we've said that before, right? I mean, when you went from 8-bit to 16-bit, you look at this game and you're like, it's never going to get better than this. This is the greatest graphics ever. How can it get any better?
And it is, it was the top of the line 2D Mario, though.
Yeah.
So it still is the best, at least, of the 2D
Yeah.
Marios.
I mean, how would you put the DS version? So we've had the DS, we've had the Switch versions. Do you still like the sprite look, the advanced sprite look of Super Mario World more than now, even? It's tough.
I do actually.
There's something about it.
There's just something. Maybe it's nostalgia. Maybe it's just because that's how I remember Mario being and all the enemies. It almost feels like it had a different art style too. Than they never went back to that art style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
The way the enemies and everything looked, it was kind of unique only to that game.
The backgrounds were really nice.
Yeah, super nice.
I mean, they were, not overly done, but they just fit really well. I think you even said, when we recorded last time that everything just fit in that game. Everything clicked. You had the music was great. The backgrounds are great. The animations were great. The level design. I mean, I don't, for a game that isn't, I think a lot of people look at Mario and say, or Mario, I say both, Mario or Mario, they look at all those games and say, well, it's not really a difficult concept, but Super Mario World did it masterfully.
Kind of like the original Super Mario Brothers series. One was cool, classic, awesome game. Really set the pace for several genres. Mario 2, we're not going to talk about. Mario 3 nailed it, for the Nintendo.
Yeah.
It was the ultimate. But then, Mario just comes swinging, very first one. And I don't like the sequel to Super Mario World. I don't even in my mind.
That's the Yoshi, the baby one, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was, and it's, as its own game, it was okay.
Sure.
But it's nowhere near Super Mario World. It's not even near most Super Mario.
Yeah, I think they should have dropped the 2. Should just been called Yoshi's Island.
We kind of talked before that what was interesting about this game is that, Yoshi, you had Mario and then you had Luigi, and Luigi built into a pretty big character. And they sort of introduced Toad and Princess in Mario 2. And Princess was fun to play because she could glide. So there were a lot of people who played Princess. But Toad, I think Toad's popularity grew from Mario Kart. A lot of people played Toad. I don't know why, but Toad was a big played character in Mario Kart. But so for me, the Mario series, like Yoshi it went Mario, Luigi, Yoshi in building these great characters. And I don't think they've ever created another character that's rivaled those three.
Yeah.
Across the, Waluigi, Wario, like all these characters they've created, Daisy, that was like the pinnacle of here's the next mega character was Yoshi.
Yoshi was I'm probably gonna butcher his name, but Miyamoto, the creator of the Mario series, he actually intended for Yoshi to be in the original Super Mario Brothers game limitations wouldn't allow him, or he couldn't get it to work right or whatever. So this was like he was dying to finally, and the power of the Super Nintendo allowed him to finally
Now you're playing with power.
have his dreams come true. So, but yeah, I agree. So Luigi, his little moonwalk jump thing he does, signature, awesome. And Peach has kept her little floaty thing. We were pretty young during the Super Mario Bros. 2 days, so like I know, just because I was a boy, I would not play as the princess. Like, would not do it. I would pick his toes.
The floating was too good.
It was good.
It was, and I couldn't stand the Luigi run.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. It was hard to time things right.
It felt like you were on, like, I think we talked about this before, like the newer games feel like a little bit like your characters are on ice.
Right.
And Super Mario World didn't feel that way, 3 didn't feel that way, 1 didn't feel that way. But Luigi felt that way in 2, where it was kind of just like you would land and you were still sort of moving.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the newer games, like the Switch and some of the DS versions and such, they kind of have that slidey feel for your characters. And as someone who holds the run button down every second of the game, that's not good for me. That little bit of slide is literally the difference between life and death for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And in a platforming game that's got really tight, so like Mario games, the controls are really tight, and that's what drives the platforming. This was the last really great replayability Mario game to me.
As a fan of the game back then, when you didn't have achievement points, is that if friends came over to your house or you went over to their house with your cartridge, when you put it in, you had that star, you beat the game.
Yeah.
And that was really cool.
And we talked about that before too. So being in that time frame, you had friends come over to your house, or you brought your cartridge with you to their house to play. And so having shown that you had beat the game or etc. was kind of like your achievements, I guess, where people could look and all that kind of thing and see. Because back in that time frame, what's interesting about it, back in our day, you had a lot of people at school usually, right?
Yeah.
Who would be saying things like that they did all this stuff, that they beat the game, they got these crazy scores, and they did all this stuff, but they were lying. You remember that? There would be people who would pretend, who would have fake. What do you call that? What would you call
fake
that?
news?
Yeah, fake news. Fake news. That was
false gamers.
False gamers. And the invention of achievements and profiles and things like that kind of exposed those people.
You know who those people are now?
Who?
They're the #1 ranked paladin on the server.
Yes.
You're ranked #1 in what? That's the person who said they beat Mario Brothers, and you put the cartridge in, and it didn't have a star.
It's like, oh my gosh.
All they did was sneak through Star Road. They didn't even play.
And that's the other thing. I know we talked about in the old video, but this was a pack-in game. This came with the Super Nintendo. That's huge. So if I was making a system, right, and I was making a game for it, I'm not going to lie. If I put a lot of effort into the system, I wouldn't include such an awesome pack-in game. I wouldn't. I would want them to go buy my game I put all this effort into.
I've thought a lot more about this. Okay. So let's go through it, and you have to help me a little bit. But you had NES came with Super Mario Brothers, and then the Duck Hunt combo. N64 came with. I'm sorry. Super Nintendo came with Super Mario World.
Right.
N64 came with. Did it come with Super Mario 64 when it came out, or just no games with that one?
Yeah, so it was a launch title, but you had to buy Super Mario 64 separately.
And they didn't even do like a bundle or anything? I didn't get a 64 till later. Okay. So, but it's funny because you think through, and then the Wii had Wii Sports, GameCube.
Nah, nothing.
So it is interesting to kind of look at Nintendo that with the Wii, they went back to, it's not a Mario Brothers game, but it's the Wii Sports was a big deal for them with that one.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So we didn't talk yet. we talked a little bit about getting firepower for water levels, or so there were a couple of there was water levels which have been in every Mario game.
Yeah.
Then we had some of the self-moving levels, like where you had to ride the skulls in the lava. You had the ones where the level just moved by itself. All those levels that don't let me hold the run button down and go at my own pace drive me crazy. And the absolute worst are water levels.
I like that. I always found like it kind of forces you to memorize the level and like get really good at it. And then like they always would put stuff in there like something really enticing, an extra life or something in a spot where you'd have to risk everything to even get it. I like that. I even kind of like the water levels. I mean, I'm not like a huge fan.
Not a fan.
When I see them, I'm like, cool, water level. I may curse a few times getting through the level, but I'm kind of excited. I don't know. There's some sort of freedom you get in a water level. You know, you got more space to work with.
Yeah, not me. The only freedom I get is beating it and never playing it again, ever. I can't. I don't even like. You remember that game Hydro Thunder?
Yeah.
Too much water. That's another funny thing about consoles. Every time a new console comes out, it's like, did you see the water? Every time.
That is the first thing they upgrade, isn't it?
Yeah, every time.
Yeah, Bowser. So the fight with Bowser, man. I was a little disappointed that he was in a machine. At that time, I distinctly remember thinking, why are they trying to be like Sonic?
So that's a great bring up. So Super Mario World came out with the Super Nintendo. Sonic came out with the Genesis. They came out right around the same time, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the first Sonic. Can you say that they were trying to be Sonic? That's an interesting point.
We should look into that. But in my opinion, I already played Sonic. So, for me, I was like, come on, this is Bowser. This isn't Dr. Robotnik. Because we didn't call him Eggman back then.
And he even throws out, like, creatures that are mechanical to throw at him.
Yeah.
It's a little spring on it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting fight. It brings the always thing about bad guys in video games. Why do they always give you the tools to defeat them? Like, I'm in this thing, you can't even jump on me, that's all you have. Here's some things to throw at me.
Yeah, here's some things to help you out because you're obviously at a disadvantage.
See this? Snuck in. Yeah, and so the fight was interesting. The first part was pretty easy. We just throw them up and you hit them. And then you had, you threw the fire. And I always died on the fire because I'm an idiot. It's that whole hold the run button. All you had to do was like wait for the right moment because it would just loop around. But then the machine gets like mad and the eyes turn. And he's just like trying to smash you. That was always like, usually if I was gonna die, it was either because I'm dumb to the fire or that part where he's like smashing. It's a little tougher. So
yeah, and I didn't think that Mario could beat Bowser. I thought there had to be an environmental thing because all the way up to that point, it was the bridge and the lava actually killed him. Bowser stomping through the ground until he died. So in my brain, I wasn't thinking Mario had the capability to actually defeat Bowser, or even like they had to leave it open that he didn't die, so he couldn't make it to where he beat him. But when you
which they kind of did in that game. So I mean, you beat him, and then the machine goes haywire and like drops him upside down, and then goes away.
Yeah,
and he just falls. Like he doesn't fall on the ground. Like you don't actually like. You never actually like physically contact him or like lock him up. So,
to this day, which we know Bowser's not gonna die. It's Nintendo.
Can you imagine like Nintendo's like, this is our last console. Shit's getting real.
And he decapitates Bowser, rips his spine out. We talked about this earlier too. So when you're fighting Bowser and he flies towards the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, that looked so awesome back then.
That was like, I mean, graphically, you're like, whoa.
People were super mad, by the way. This is back on topic. So people, I don't know if you remember this, but people were pissed when they announced the Super Nintendo, because they felt like they were going to pull another Atari on us and just like do these incremental tiny little upgrades and then force you to buy new game cartridges and the new console.
Yeah.
Do you remember how mad people were?
Yeah, but I think as soon as people saw the difference,
Mario World.
yeah, it was like, okay.
'Cause
I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing.
I hung in there for a long time. I really did. A lot of my friends had a Super Nintendo. I had friends who already had a Sega Genesis. And I was hanging in there, man. I was like, dude, I'm not getting a new console. I love my Nintendo. I had a ton of games. You know, I had this library of games. And I was like, dude, I'm not walking away from my Nintendo. This is where it's at. And they were still making games for it up to that point. And I didn't get it. You know, I was a kid. I didn't understand, like, they're gonna move on. Like, the Nintendo's not. And I hung in there for a long time, man. But Super Mario World, Sonic the Hedgehog, believe it or not, this is kind of stupid, but there was a Tasmanian game on the Sega Genesis.
It was awesome.
It was awesome, man.
Awesome.
That
I remember
was
it.
one of the reasons I bought a Genesis. I had a problem. Guys, if there's a game that you have this psychic feeling that both of us might have played, because that's the only rule, we both have to have played it, and you want to see us cover it, drop it in the comments down below. We definitely read every comment. We're not that big yet. So we read every single comment. Literally read. We don't have secretaries. It's us reading it. Let us know, because we're eventually going to run out of ideas. And you may say something that we've forgotten about, and something that really makes us be like, wow, that really would be awesome. So let us know. If we both played it, we will do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I second that, and I don't even have to do an end because that's just going right in mine. So good job.